Good morning. I am Robert Kelly. I'm one of the pastors here at the church. I haven't met all of you yet, so I'm glad to have at least an opportunity to introduce myself. And welcome again to Beacon Church. We are so glad that you are here with us today, not only as a part of your 9/11 memorial, but also as a part of coming together as a spiritual family and being together in this way where we can come and worship God and learn a little bit more about His amazing love for us. You know that love makes us crazy, right? You all know this. You've all experienced it. It doesn't matter if you could think about, I think there's a movie out right now, Crazy Stupid Love or something like that. I haven't seen it. But anybody seen that yet? I don't know. All right, so I'm not going to ask you to recommend it or not yet. Yeah, but yeah, Crazy Stupid Love, because of course that's what happens. Love makes us crazy. You know, if you're Eminem or Rihanna, you certainly know this is the case. Any countless movies and untold songs have told the story. Some of you would know, of course, Crazy Love by Morrison. I can hear her heartbeat for 1,000 miles, and the heavens open every time she smiles. And when I come to her, that's where I belong. Yet I'm running to her like a river song. She give me love, 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 crazy. Come on, help me out here. Ready? Just give me love, 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 crazy love. All right, so I guess it's lyrics morning for us here at Beacon Church. Yeah, she give me crazy love, because love makes us crazy. We see this so many times. I heard a story recently. Some of you probably picked this up. It wasn't from around here, obviously, because a bear, there's not a lot of bear on Long Island, but a bear grabbed a dog, some sort of a dachshund or something like that. Did you guys hear this story? A woman in Alaska, she loved her dog so much, she ran up and she punched the bear in the face. Boom! That was her response. A bear grabbed her dog and she punched it in the face. Alaskan woman, so go figure. Yeah, that's, crazy love makes us do some pretty crazy things. Who has not been subject to this lunacy? Whether it's chemical or emotional or whatever, love makes us do some pretty crazy kinds of things. I heard a story about a woman. Her apartment had caught on fire, her apartment complex, and so they were evacuating the entire complex. And so they had a couple of moments to grab something important to them. And this woman comes running out of the house with a one-piece bathing suit. And, her daughter was like, Mom, out of all of the things in the house of value, you grab a bathing suit? And she says, material things, they come and go, but a one-piece bathing suit that doesn't make you look fat is irreplaceable. The crazy things that we will do for love. What are some of the crazy things you've done for love? Anybody want to tell us? Anybody want to confess? This is a moment of confession. Anybody want to confess some of the crazy things you've done for love? Anyone? Come on. Do we have no hopeless romantic? Go ahead, Con.
Was the movie about to do a performance with you guys? My wife told me to know to start dancing. Mamma Mia. Yeah.
Mamma Mia. Only the people on the stage should dance. Yeah. That's sort of the way it's supposed to work.
Young love, when we and I first started dating, a long time ago, we walked in a snowstorm to get me ice cream because I had mono and I really wanted ice cream for some reason.
Oh, that's so sweet. I can't believe you made him go out for ice cream in a snowstorm. What were you thinking? Is that because, is this story about Gwee's crazy love or your crazy love for ice cream? Yeah, any other stories about how love has made you dumb? Because it does. It definitely does. Go ahead.
It's a different kind of love, I guess. When my son was born, I got to the emergency room a couple days after he left the hospital, and I was just so freaking out with what was going to happen to me for him. They're telling me that only I can stay, and I'm so terrified. And I was like a lioness, my mom, fighting for her cub, and I was like, you have to let my husband stay. It's his child too.
Oh, yeah.
They let us, even though we weren't supposed to.
She was losing it. Yeah, that's right. That's crazy love. That's what it does. It makes us do things that just, they seem irrational. Some people explain it away as chemical, and other people say it's emotional. Who knows? But love certainly makes us go crazy. Some of you remember the story it was actually told by John McCain before he was crazier. But it was one of these amazing stories that came out of his time in Vietnam when he was a POW. And apparently they were in this prison camp, and they were starting to let some of the prisoners be together in larger cells. And a man named Mike Christian, these men were all here because they loved their country. They fought for their flag. And in the midst of this POW camp, this one guy, Mike Christian, he begins to piece together. He finds little shreds of fabric and whatever, paper and plastics. And he, of course, collected as many of these little red, white, and blue fragments as he could. And he stitched together a little flag. And he sewed it on the inside of his shirt. And then every day, they would take this shirt and they would stick it up there on the wall, the flag, and all of these POWs would do the Pledge of Allegiance. This is what McCain was telling the story. He was there. He was with this guy, Mr. Christian, Lieutenant Christian. And while he was there, of course, eventually the guards found out. And they walked in there and they ripped the shirt down off the wall. They ripped up the flag and they beat Mike Christian. And then they returned him to his cell some hours later after a severe beating. And after everyone was sort of settling in for the evening and Mike was sort of nursing his wounds, they found him in the corner. And after a beating like that, who knew? What would you be doing? What would I be doing? And what was Mike doing? He was collecting little bits of red, white, and blue to stitch together, again, a flag. This was the country that he loved, the people that he loved, and he was willing to sacrifice greatly. Really? Again? You're going to make the flag? You're going to sing it again? It's crazy love. It's crazy love. We do some pretty crazy things for love. And in our series here, we have found out that it is rare that we love too much. Very often the problems come in that we don't love enough. We don't love enough. Crazy love pushes us further, deeper, more recklessly. Now, in this series, God is closer than you think. This is the last week of the series, and in many ways, this has been one of the more challenging series that I have ever participated in, that I've ever been a part of. It's been some of the hardest texts from the Old Testament, and we've been basing the whole series on this idea of God's absence in the midst of hurt and pain and suffering. How come he allows these things? Where is he? What strength or hope can we find? And in times like this, how do you see that God has any sort of crazy love for us? Because the Bible teaches us that God is so crazy in love with us that he will stop at nothing. He will stop at nothing in order to make us crazy in love with him. Do you guys see that? Throughout the scriptures, we find out that God's crazy love compels him. It compels him to make himself the object of our crazy love. That's what he wants for us. That's what he's pursuing. And he will use any means possible to bring about that transformation of our heart. He loves us so much, he knows we need him to be the center of our desire. He knows that that is how we were created to live as people. Humanity at its pinnacle would have God as the ultimate object of our crazy love. And so God will stop at nothing to accomplish that. Now, in our text that we've been looking at throughout this series, it's hard to see it. It's hard to see God's crazy love. You can imagine what Jeremiah the prophet and the nation of Israel would have been experiencing here as Jerusalem was being destroyed. The temple was going to be taken apart piece by piece, burned to the ground. It would have been very hard to see God's crazy love in any of this. It would have been nearly impossible, which of course is why this series has been so difficult and this time in history had been so challenging. We're going to be in Lamentations 3. You thought you had come across some difficult readings so far through the Bible? And then we find Lamentations, which is arguably the most depressing book in all of the Bible. It is so hard. It's the heart of Jeremiah being poured out in incredible poetry and song. And he's laying out this life filled with suffering. You guys know that life is filled with suffering, right? You know that? Now, I say that carefully. The Buddha would tell you that life is suffering. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that life is suffering. What I'm saying is that life is filled with suffering. It's filled with pain. The distinction there is important, I think. Life is filled with pain and suffering. Look at Lamentations 3, starting in verse 1. I am the man who has seen affliction. That's Jeremiah, of course, but by extension, it's the nation of Israel. And beyond the nation of Israel, it of course speaks to every one of us. Scholars note that the language that he uses here, and he kind of switches back and forth between the you and the I and the we, it creates this impression that anyone could be found on in these pages. I am the man who has seen affliction. If you can identify with that, just read that with me, all right? Read that out loud. I am the man who has seen affliction. Let's do that again. I am the man who has seen affliction. If you work your way down through this passage, you can find where the affliction is coming from. Every corner, every part of your existence will be afflicted in some way. By the rod of his wrath, he says, he has driven me away and made me walk in darkness rather than light. Indeed, he has turned his hand against me again and again all day long. Of course, he's talking about God here. He's turned his hand against me. When you thought you'd turn to God and it was a forever sort of a thing, that's not what he's feeling anymore. I gave my life to God. I pursued him, and God's now turned on me. He's turned against me again and again and again. What happened to till death do us part? What part is there? Where is it? How come the promises made aren't the promises being kept by God? Where is he? I heard a story about a young couple. They went into the registrar's office to get the marriage license, and they'd filled out the paperwork, and they gave their fee, and they get the license, and the clerk says, now, by the way, this marriage license is good for 30 days. And the young groom is all flustered. He's like, no, I'm sorry. We want one till death do us part. We want that one. Do I pay extra for that one? Because I want the permit that goes all the way. I'm not going to give her a 30-day out, because it's till death do us part. Where's God in the till death do us part? It doesn't seem like he's here anymore. He's turned on us, the lamentation goes. Look at verse 4. He has made my skin and my flesh grow old, worn down is what's happening here. He's worn down, and he's broken my bones. He has besieged me and surrounded me with bitterness and hardship. And when we're getting tired and we're getting beaten down and we look around, we're like, you know what? I'm getting old. I'm old before my time. I'm wasting away. This is beyond the physical. It's the emotional. It's the spiritual. I'm getting kind of dried up, a little leathery. I'm getting calloused. I'm getting old, far beyond our years, because we're worn down by this world. Verse 6, he has made me dwell in darkness like those long dead. By the way, this is the first mention of zombies in the Bible. Apparently, like those long dead. Apparently, God thinks every story is better with zombies. And so, and he's right in that. And so he has made me dwell in darkness like those long dead. Verse 7, he has walled me in. That's not true. Don't go about repeating that. That's a joke. If you guys go out and say, yeah, the Bible talks about zombies, it's not exactly what I'm not saying that. He has walled me in, verse 7, so I cannot escape. He has weighed me down with chains. Even when I call out or cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. How many times I'll hear someone say, if only God would answer me. Listen, he shut it out. You can't get through. He ain't listening. Prayers aren't reaching their destination. His response isn't going to happen. How often, if he would just answer me, if I would just know, if he would just say something. And yet here, the lament says, no, he's not even listening to my prayers. He has barred my way. Look at verse 9. He has barred my way with blocks of stone. He has made my paths crooked. This is when you begin in life to see no way out of the hole that you have dug. You're stuck in a loveless marriage. You have seen a kind of loneliness, and you don't see the way out of this tunnel. Maybe you are in a place where you have a lost opportunity that's never coming back to you. That ship has sailed. Your way has been barred. It's been blocked. The walls have been built around you. The path is crooked. Every time you turn down another path, dead end. God's not opening any more doors. There are no windows. Nothing but dead ends. There isn't any hope that one of these little paths I go down will suddenly miraculously open up and show me the perfect will of God. The path has been made crooked. Look at verse 10. Like a bear lying in wait, like a lion in hiding, he dragged me from the path and mangled me. I feel like I need to remind you, he's talking about God here. He's talking about his God. He dragged me from the path and he mangled me and left me without help. He drew his bow and made me the target for his arrows. You know, sometimes you get to this point where you're like, all right, God, if you're not going to help, that's fine. Just stay out of it. Like, just don't, what he's saying here is it's not even that God is not involved. He's hunting him down. He's pursuing him like an expert archer or a violent animal. You see if you have ever entered into that place in your heart where you felt like God isn't just not helping, he's actively against me. Now you're getting into the heart of Jeremiah in this story. He is so hurting. He is so broken. Look at verse 13. He pierced my heart with arrows from his quiver. I became the laughing stock of all my people. They mock me in song all day long. He's filled me with bitter herbs and sated me with gall. He pierced my heart. You have a broken heart today? Have you tried to figure out how to mend those pieces? Has your heart been pierced in such a way that the pieces can't even be found? You're beginning to wonder whether or not God has any interest at all in who you are, where you are, the shattered shell of a heart. I heard a comedian once say that, when she's dating guys, she's always asking herself, is this the kind of a man that I would like my kids to spend their weekends with? That's where we've come to. Is this the kind of a man who I want my kids to spend their weekends with? Because that's what's happened. Our hearts have been broken. They've been taken apart. Verse 16, he has broken my teeth with gravel. He has trampled me in the dust. I have been deprived of peace. I have forgotten what prosperity is. So I say my splendor is gone and all that I had hoped for from the Lord. I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them. My soul is downcast within me. I'd say he's depressed. You take a look here. From verse 1 down all the way to 18, it's the first time the name of the Lord shows up. It's very unusual for a long stretch of text talking about God to not use his name. It's almost as if even by crafting this poem, Jeremiah is trying to say, don't you see? He's nowhere to be found. I am alone. There is no God, there is no Yahweh, there is no Lord, there is no Redeemer, there is no Savior. The only time he shows up is here toward the end at verse 18. He's saying, all that I had hoped for in the one that I had trusted is gone. That's it. He is so alone. No reference to God in this first part of his poem. When we read through this, we come to that understanding that pain is an ever-present reality for us. But we can go a step further and say that pain is in fact an essential part of the Christian life. It's an essential part of the Christian life. It's that time when God is doing some deeper work in your soul. It's that time when you're beginning to say that the lost loves of our lives, God's absence, what is it he's doing? Why is it that he's doing it? How is it that any of this can be good? How can God be in any of it? And it's here that we begin to see that there are things that we will learn in a journey that we will take. There is a love that can be cultivated in the human heart that will only take place when we can walk through these first 18 verses together. When we can come and lay our complaint, our lament before God. When we can get to that place of despair and wondering. But it's there that we begin to see how essential pain will be. So what do? That pain ought to drive us to God. It ought to drive us to God. But instead, what often takes place is we start to manage the pain. Isn't that our normal response? We try to figure out ways of getting this pain out of our experience. We start managing it in any variety of ways. A guy goes out with his wife. They're out, trying to have an evening together, and they're having a couple of drinks. And so this one guy, the husband, he's kind of staring down at his drink, and he says, "I love you." And his wife says, "Is that you talking or the beer talking?" And he says, "Well, actually, it's me talking to the beer." Because we're gonna manage this pain any way we can. Remember, the Buddha would tell us that life is pain. Well, he goes on in the Four Noble Truths to tell us not only is life filled with pain, but that pain is caused by our desire. And the way to end pain is to end desire. And the way that you end desire is through following the eightfold path of the Buddha. That's the Four Noble Truths leading to the eightfold path. See, life is pain. The pain will end when desire ends. When you kill desire, and when that takes place, you'll stop this cycle of death and rebirth, and you'll eventually reach nirvana if you follow the Buddha's path. What's the goal? The killing of desire. Many Christians are practicing Buddhists. We want to kill the desire. We want to press it down. We don't want to experience the pain. You can't do that. You're settling for too little. You've got to go through the pain. The pain is an essential part of coming to know God and be crazy in love with Him. It may be the very only way that it will take place in your life. C.S. Lewis, in one of the most famous quotes, and one of my favorite quotes, said, "Indeed, if we consider the unblushing promises of reward and the staggering nature of the rewards promised in the Gospels, it would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak." You guys get that? Not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures, fooling around with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased. You can't kill desire. You've got to rechannel it. You need to refocus it. You need to stoke those desires. You need to get them red hot. You're settling for too little. You don't want to kill desire. You want to get it. You want to make sure that it's being satiated on that which lasts, that which matters. Don't kill your desire. You could kill your pain. You kill your desire. You become a half human. You don't become someone who walks with God. Others, instead of trying to kill the pain, we just try to manage it. We medicate it away. We try to figure out a way to kind of deaden our normal experiences. Some of us, instead of just sort of medicating it away, you guys know all the pleasure stats that are out there, right? We spend like billions and billions of dollars on all of this weird stuff to kind of satisfy our own. You guys have heard, right? I mean, I don't need to even tell you about some of these, but the couple of stats I'll just give you real quick. One of them says that Americans spent about $16 billion on amusements. $10.5 billion for alcohol, $5 billion for tobacco, $2 billion for travel, $325 billion for cat and dog food. For cat food, really? I mean, come on. Dog food, yes, but... Sorry. $304 million for chewing gum and $76 million for lipstick. I would let that last one slide, too. But, but this is it. Like, that's what we're doing. What we're trying to do is we're trying to medicate away our pain in any way that we possibly can. If we're not medicating it away, we're trying to lower our expectations. Make sure that we're settling for stuff. Because if we can settle, there was one day where you may have wanted a meaningful life. Now you'll settle for a busy one. Why? Why are we lowering our expectations? Why are we lowering our passions? Our desires. One day I wanted to really know God, and now it's a lot of work, so I think I'll just go to church sometimes. Right? You guys know this tendency in our heart. We don't want to experience the pain, so we shield it. We protect our hearts. I want to get into a significant relationship, but I'm scared of rejection, so we lower our expectations. We fail to take those kind of risks. We won't risk pain because, of course, pain is the enemy. Because we haven't seen that pain is an essential part of our walk with God. We can let this pain drive us to our God. We can embrace this pain. Take a look at verse 21. Yet this I call to mind. You'll notice a shift going on with Jeremiah at this point. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. Is this the same guy? He's just gone through this vicious lament, this broken heart, and he says, yet I call this to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. We sing a song like that, great is your faithfulness. It's an old Christian hymn. Great is thy faithfulness. We sing it as if it doesn't belong to this lament. How is it that Jeremiah is saying, great is your faithfulness? They're new every morning. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. Say that with me. The Lord is my portion. Let's say that again. The Lord is my portion. When a bear tries to eat your dog, say it again. The Lord is my portion. Or when fire consumes your favorite bathing suit, the Lord is my portion. When your kids are spending their weekends with their dad, the Lord is my portion. When you are beaten down in a POW camp, the Lord is my portion. When terrorists kill and maim and destroy, the Lord is my portion. When your job just sucks and your boss is a cretin, the Lord is my portion. When a friend betrays you and you've become a laughingstock, the Lord is my portion. When you have a wayward child whose future is uncertain, the Lord is my portion. When your marriage is failing, the Lord is my portion. When your heart is broken, the Lord is my portion. When a love of your life dies, the Lord is my portion. Can we allow our pain to drive us to God? Can we allow our pain to drive us to God? I mean, after all, it was the desperation of his pain that drove him to us. I mean, can't we let our desperate situations, can't we let our desperate pain drive us to him? It's what he did. It's precisely what he did. Take a look here at Lamentations 3:33. For he does not willingly bring affliction or grief to the children of men. He does not willingly. Well, wait a second. He's God. So if God isn't willing to bring affliction, then God shouldn't have to. How is it that God unwillingly does something? What is it that could make God do something he doesn't want to do? He's unwilling to do it, and yet he does. This is the same guy. Remember, Jeremiah is not a fool. He knows what he's saying. God has in fact done all these things, but he doesn't want to do them. Why is it that God is unwilling and yet still does? What could it be? It's desperation. He's desperate. I want to take a look at a gruesome text with you just for a moment. Just for a moment. See, this passage I told you was about Jeremiah. Jeremiah 3 is about him, and it's also about the nation of Israel. And of course, it's also about the everyman, you and me. But ultimately, it's about Jesus Christ. How do we know this? Take a look at that first verse again. I am the man who has seen affliction. What man greater than Christ has seen greater affliction? He has seen a great affliction. Jeremiah can say that he's not consumed, but it isn't the same thing that Jesus can say. Flip over to chapter 4. Lamentations 4, verse 10. And hold on a second. Just give me a moment. With their own hands Compassionate women, this is key to understand it. These are good women. These are compassionate women, have cooked their own children who became their food when my people were destroyed. This is one of the most gruesome texts in all of the Bible. It's unimaginable to us. But under the siege, in the face of starvation and death, people do some pretty incredible things. Desperation drives us to do things we would never believe possible. We would find it absolutely irrational. How? But he wants to make sure you know these are not bad women. These are compassionate women. Something desperate is driving them. A desperation has settled into them that we can't even begin to comprehend it. It makes us do these terrible things. But look at the next verse. Why would Jeremiah tie these two verses together? Following this gruesome verse, we have the Lord has given full vent to his wrath. He has poured out his fierce anger. He has kindled a fire in Zion that consumed her foundations. Yes, his fire did consume the foundation of Zion. Who's the chief cornerstone? We're told in the scriptures it's Christ himself. We say, oh my goodness, how could anyone consume their own child? Well, isn't that exactly what happened to Christ? Isn't that exactly what God did for us in his crazy desperation for us? He consumed his own son, the one and only, the only begotten. We come here, we celebrate it. We take these into us, we ingest them, we consume them as a way of helping us remember always that God was willing to stop at nothing. He would consume his own child for us. For us. How do you get crazier love than that? Who would offer this up to others? The great God, his perfect Son, the one and only, the holy and one only begotten Son of God. And all of God's wrath was fully vented in that moment. All of his wrath was vented. It was spent. It was exhausted when his own son was consumed. There was a woman who took her child, a 3-year-old, to a funeral. And this funeral was, of course, you want to be careful how kids act at a funeral. And so she told her, be careful, be quiet, be respectful. It's a funeral, be somber. You're a 3-year-old, but just be quiet and we'll be safe. And so, she did. The little girl did great. She was very quiet. She sat down in the middle and just didn't say much. And then right at the very end, in a moment of quiet, in a not-so-quiet whisper, she turned to her mother and she said, Mom, who's the guy in the treasure chest? We're the guy in the treasure chest. We're like dead men walking. And God says, you're like a treasure to me. You're like a treasure to me. You've raised a fist of rebellion, and I'm willing to consume my own son for you. To cultivate a crazy love for God, we start at his crazy love for us. He was irrational about it. He did things inconceivable to us, unimaginable. He did them because his love for us drove him to it in desperation. When you cultivate this reliance on God, when you let that sit at the center of your being, when you find a spiritual pathway that will cause that love for you that God has in Christ, proven at the cross, to grip your heart, then you will begin to love him with a crazy love. A crazy love as he becomes the center, the perfect point of all things colliding in your heart. A crazy love for God. Would you pray with me? Lord, we are your treasure. Inexplicably so. You've told us it, you've proved it to us. And I ask that it would generate in us a kind of love that goes beyond reason, a kind of love that others would see as nonsense. But of course, you made that way clear. You've already gone down that road. You were willing to do more and go further than any of us could have hoped or imagined, so that we might see that your love for us has no bounds, has no end. We pray, Lord, that this great gift of forgiveness and hope in you would rest firmly at the center of who we are. May we come to love you with a crazy love. Amen.